And it looks like we are live. Pardon the wait for just a few minutes as we dealt with some technical difficulties on my end. So hopefully everything is good to go. But we're going to get our Facebook groups in here, get the conversation flowing, and enjoy a wonderful Friday evening. Wait for it. Looks like we're good to go. Mile high. Hello, everybody in Broncos country. Welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I am your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me as per usual is my good friend and colleague. He is Mile High Huddle's senior NFL draft analyst, the one and only Erick Trickel. Erick, dude, draft season very much underway. We're closing in just shy of 2 weeks from the first round, dude. We've got pre-draft visits to the top 30 visits. The Broncos are very active in that right now. Obviously, Jared Verse came in today. How you keeping up, dude?
Doing good. I'm extremely tired.
Yes.
Not only have I been, getting out the scouting reports, getting yours edited and published, getting mine typed up, going through all my notes. I went through and I've spent the last couple weeks rewatching a bunch of players, just going and getting my finalized grades and then making my board for that. Which my big board, my prospect rankings, they're all done and completed. I'll be tweeting out the link to the Google Sheet for that, and in the Google Sheet, it'll have embedded links in the players' names to the scouting reports that we've done. So still working on that. It's been busy. It's hectic. I'm excited because here in about a month, I'm going on a brief vacation. So going to be getting away for a while after the draft. Looking forward to the draft. Looking forward to getting here and being over with. Like this year, I think the last couple of years of not having a first round pick were like in a way spoiled us to where we didn't have to stress out about the first round. We didn't have to sit there and do all this stuff. But no, this year we have to focus on everything. So it's a little bit more on our plate. But we're doing a good job. You're doing a great job with the scouting reports.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And just looking for all you guys to go read those at milehighhuddle.com.
Yes, absolutely. Milehighhuddle.com. You're going to find all of our scouting reports. And guys, I'm going to kind of describe a little bit of what I have to do. I work a full-time job, which is in its own thing. Don't worry about that. But when I get home from that, I spend 5 to 6 hours a day grinding tape to do these articles for everybody. I'm trying to get a bunch done over the next week to be done so I can take probably a little bit of a week off and just kind of regather myself and get ready to do the marathon live draft podcast, which we do every single year. It's so much fun to do, but man, I need a break. It's been a long last week and a half or so. And yes, Mike Reno jumping in, saying good to see you back, Lance. Hope all is well. Everybody's good. Everything is fine. Erick kind of teased a little bit. I'm not going to get into the gory details. My wife was in a car accident last week, and everyone's fine. Car is done. It's total. No big deal. Everyone's happy. Everyone's healthy. We're all home. Everyone's safe. So thank you all for your concern and reaching out to me on Twitter and YouTube comments and everything like that. I definitely appreciate the support. Like, you guys really helped get through very trying and difficult time there for a few days. So thank you guys for your concern. We got a great show for you tonight, though, guys, because Erick and I like to do this, and this is something that I didn't know. Erick really kind of revealed a little bit of some inside baseball, well, I guess inside football here, for what our project is. We do this every single year. It's a would you rather. So would you rather draft player A in round 1 or draft player B in round 4? What's the valuation comparison here? So we're going to give Erick a chance to really shine with what he does and just break down everything. Before we get started, though, I do want to get your thoughts, dude. Like I said before we got going here, Jared Verse was brought in for a top 30 visit for the Broncos earlier today. I know that for you, I believe he is edge number 3 in this class, mostly because he's a one-trick pony. Break down what he brings to the Broncos, what he brings on the tape, and is he a good fit for this Broncos defense?
Yeah, once again, I just want to say hello to Cal. I'm not going to where the mosquitoes are normal, which I don't know what normal mosquitoes are outside of what we have here. Tiny little annoying things. I'm just going up to Anchorage, making that 2.5 hour drive up there, going up there with the wife, the kid, my parents, just getting away for a little while and enjoying it some time and going shopping. Of course. And yeah, we're going to be doing some Rattler discourse to give a spoiler here, but stay tuned for it because it'll be interesting. Anyways, as for Jared Verse, he's my third edge rusher, as you said. I just like he's very close to Latu in my rankings. I can't remember exactly where they are, but there's like one player between the two of them, and their overall grade is like 0.1 of a difference. So they're very close together. I just think that I'm a little bit higher on Latu as a run defender than other people, including, our colleague Nick Kendall.
Yep.
He and I, we've talked about that off and on. It's not to say that I think that Latu is a great or excellent run defender. I just think that he has the tools and traits to be successful there at the NFL with a little bit more technical development. Everything I've heard, I don't have as much concern about the neck injuries. Obviously, they're still concerning, but he's been able to play 2 years of football without that being an issue. So I'm a little bit less concerned about that. And then when it comes to Jared Verse, I mean, I think it's smart to bring him in for a visit. The Broncos need a pass rusher, and he's a quality pass rusher. I think he's more of a one-trick pony pass rusher, and there's a lot of technical aspects that he has to clean up. He just very much relies on just driving through blockers. He doesn't have great bend. He's not a great athlete, or I don't want to say he's not a great athlete. He's not a loose and fluid athlete, I think is the best way to put it. Neither is Latu. But Latu brings more size to the game, and his hand technique is phenomenal. There isn't as much technical work to need to be done with him. As I said, very closely graded together, and just a brief or just a simple aspect of I really love technicians.
Yeah.
You can't teach athleticism, stuff like that, but the less technical and development that you have to do with the player, the easier it is their transition to the NFL typically.
Right.
String guy coming in real quick, asking if Scott's in the chat. Scott is not with us tonight, unfortunately. But yes, the Atlanta Falcons are being investigated, as are the Philadelphia Eagles. I saw you guys talking about this before we went live, for tampering before the new league year began. The Atlanta Falcons were in contact with
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins, thank you. Name completely slipped my mind. During the combine, well before the new league year. They're likely to be, punished for it, and they'll probably lose a pick or two in next year's draft as a result of that. And I can't remember who the players the Eagles are being investigated for tampering with.
I don't know.
Is it Saquon Barkley?
Actually, I think it is. I don't know. I didn't really follow the story very much. I saw that there was an investigation coming, but I think it was Saquon Barkley was the name that I saw.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but same thing. They're going to be investigated if they found to believed to have broken the rule that's there. Well, they'll end up losing picks next year as well.
Yeah. And there could be some fines coming out of that. I want to go back to Verse versus Latu really quickly, just because this was a very fun player to watch for me with Latu. Like you said, very technical with his hand placement. And I think the big thing that was a big differentiator for me between Verse and Latu was Latu may not be a great run defender in terms like a penetrating, like let's go disrupt some things. He's more of a wall and stall guy. Jared Verse, he just doesn't have that power in his lower half to really wall off and set a firm edge. He likes to flow with the play going laterally. So that was a big difference in what I saw. That's why I have Latu as edge number 2 over Verse for me anyways. But let's say hello to the rest of the chat, and then we'll get into this would you rather exercise, which I'm super stoked about this. This is always really fun to do. We got Todd Osendorf in the house, Peter and Middleton jumping in from Singapore. We got String Guy, obviously, Adam Strange in the house, Chase Wellner, Dennis Woods, Cal, David Youngkin, as he's always want to do. We got Michael Ronquillo jumping in here on Facebook, as he always does on every single show, whether it's the morning, whether it's the evening, Monday through Sunday, technically. Michael is one of the best supporters here, saying good evening, Lance and Eric on the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Broncos. Go Michael. Thank you for your support, dude. It's always very well appreciated here at Mile High Huddle. That pretty much rounds us out for the hellos to everybody. If you guys are watching on Facebook, make sure you guys come in and give us a comment. Get your guys' questions in here as well. We'll do a Would You Rather segment for you guys if you have a couple of those. But let's dive right on into this thing. And obviously, it is what?
Real quick, football Would You Rathers. Football would you rather. You know, I don't want to
NFL
get none of that. You know, would you wipe with sandpaper? Would you rather? There's like football,
sandpaper or
draft
poison,
prospects.
sandpaper or poison ivy, please. I'm curious to your thoughts on this. No, for real though. Football would you rather? Keep it to the NFL draft. We're gonna do. It's always fun. Like I kind of explained, it is a would you rather draft player A versus player B given the round, like player A in round 1, player B in round 2. What's the valuation? What is your evaluation of this prospect? And how do you create this conversation? So the first things first, a fun conversation kind of opened up here on Twitter earlier today, talking about
your idea of fun and my idea of fun are completely different. If you think this is a fun conversation,
interesting, I guess is the better way to put it. It was brought up by a couple of our guys, and they were talking about Spencer Rattler and JJ McCarthy, talking quarterbacks here to get us started. Obviously, the Broncos, you got to start here. It's the biggest need on the team. Yeah. So, Eric, would you rather draft JJ McCarthy in the first round or Spencer Rattler in the third round? And this is not like based on where the Broncos pick. Let's just talk about the round evaluation and what you think of these two players side by side.
So, JJ McCarthy, I think obviously there's so much upside with him. I know at one point I talked about, you know, how they went away from him in games and everything, but one of the things that I went back and watched on was some data came out, and it was focused on the fact that of his record, his win-loss, and it's not, you know, it's not a wins matter or a wins evaluation here, but it's the fact that they got to early leads, and in multiple games, he didn't have to throw in the second half. In multiple games, he barely even played in the second half just because of how ridiculously good that Michigan team was. So I went back and watched, and what stood out to me was when he would make a bad pass or two, like in a row, they would stick with the run. And this happened multiple times in the NCAA championship game.
Yep.
There was I think it was on Michigan's first touchdown drive, might have been their second. He threw a high pass that he got bailed out by his receiver, and one that was almost picked off, if I remember correctly.
Yep, I know exactly.
And then they just ran. They ran, and scored. So it was just the lack of trust at times after a mistake. That is a little bit concerning, but there's so many tools to work with, and it's not very common that we get somebody who works better outside of the pocket than inside of the pocket, which that muddies up McCarthy's evaluation because he's coming from a pro style offense, but you know, the work in the pocket, that's a concern. I've really grown on McCarthy. I haven't hidden that fact over the last year and a half. I've really come around on him and my thoughts on him. At one point, he wasn't a second round player to me, but he's cemented himself as a first round player. He is my number 22 overall prospect. So I like what he is. Would I trade up for him? No. Would I take him at 12? I would take him at 12 because quarterbacks in my rankings, I don't give him that bump, but in the draft, I'd give him a slight bump where 12, all right, I'll take that instead of moving down and trying to risk losing him. Spencer Rattler, there's been a lot of talk about his mechanics, and his mechanics aren't terrible. There's some inconsistencies and, you know, some little nuanced things that need to be cleaned up a little bit. Last week we talked about mid-foot force with, you know, our guest Luke Poglaze, and talking about that. And after the pod, he and we talked about it a little bit more, and he brought up his coaching manual and showed me specifically like what he was talking about. And that is something with Spencer Rattler that is kind of concerning is you typically want your back foot, that midsection of your back foot kind of aimed towards it. We always talk about that front foot and pointing your foot towards your throw. You want it the same thing. You want that unison. You want that line. And that is something that is a bit of an issue with Spencer Rattler. But one big issue with him is he wasn't the best working in the middle of the field. Not terrible, but wasn't the best. And the quality of offensive line play that he had to deal with just really hurts his overall evaluation. But you can still see a lot of these issues, and just sometimes he just isn't the quickest processor out there, which doesn't help when you have a bad offensive line.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was that was talking about Spencer Rattler. It might have been Chad Reuter that had a thread on Spencer Rattler saying that he has bad Russell Wilson moments. And it's absolutely correct. Talking about not not processing the game quickly enough and getting the ball out of your hand, holding onto the football, trying to extend to that second play. So not reading the play all the way through the way it's supposed to be, and then trying to get out of harm's way, which, like you said, dude, that tape is so hard to judge because that offensive line was just so terrible. I mean, first off, they played, I think, like 100 different offensive line combinations over the season. I know it's not 100, but it was definitely every single game this year. They had a different 5 on the starting offensive line. So he had to deal with one of the worst situations. Yeah, he had Xavier Legette, which was fun to watch him throw the football to. But at the same time, like when you can't show that consistency on tape, how do you judge that? And that's the big question I have for him is, like, you can see the flashes, you can see that he has those high quality NFL throws on his tape, but if you can't see that consistently, how do you judge that on a level to be comfortable with drafting a player like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. And then there's also the whole maturity question.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of praise that he's grown at the maturity. Well, there are still people that still question the maturity. And my thing is would Sean Payton want to take a risk on that?
Yeah.
So to answer the question of who would I rather, I would much rather take JJ McCarthy in the first than Spencer Rattler in the third. Now, if you put Spencer Rattler in the fourth, then I might be willing to go that way over JJ McCarthy. Rattler is my number 29th overall prospect in the third round, not 29th overall, just 29th overall in the third round specifically. I was too lazy, to put them all on a line to figure out exactly what number overall completely. So just 29th player with a third round grade, which is right there on the cusp of a fourth round for me. So I would.
We got Phil McLaughlin. Yeah, sorry, dude. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I do apologize for that. We got Phil McLaughlin jumping in here. Good evening, Lance and Eric. What are the top edges we have discussed, and how would you compare them to Benito and Browning? We just got done talking about Latu from UCLA and Jared Verse out of Florida State. The top edge rusher in this class for both Eric and I is Dallas Turner out of Alabama. I don't think that the Broncos are going to have an opportunity to get a player like that. He's not Will Anderson. He's not Von Miller, but he is one of those explosive, bendy, just very high energy, I guess, is the best way to describe him. He has great length. He's got all the tools. He needs some refinement in terms of his pass rush plan, but that's probably the number one guy. If I would to compare them to Benito and Browning, Latu is like we talked about, more of a technician. Jared Verse, Eric and I talked about this privately a few weeks ago. Jared Verse is very much on the same playing field as Bradley Chubb was. You think a bigger body, more speed to Bauer conversion, really likes to drive through players. Good athlete, not the most bendy guy, but just a quality 7 technique that's going to line up with his hand in the dirt in a 4-3 alignment and just bully guys getting to the quarterback. Benito, twitch guy. He's a speed rusher. He's not very much power. Browning still kind of developing, but he does have very good burst. He's got great bend. He's still growing in terms of being an edge defender. The injuries hurt his development, but if that was kind of a good enough breakdown for you, Phil, Eric, if you want to expand on anything there, that's kind of how I view at least the top edge rushers the Broncos could potentially be looking at number 12, comparing them to Benito and Browning.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. The top 3 edges, Turner, Verse, and Latu, all 3 of them are quite different from Benito, Browning, and Cooper, even with the Broncos. But one thing that often goes unmentioned in this is that Baron Browning and Jonathan Cooper are entering the final year of their deal.
Yep.
So, like, even if there was a bit of similarity there to them, like drafting one, it creates options for the Broncos going forward. They don't have to then, dish out extra money to try to keep Baron Browning or, extra money to keep Jonathan Cooper. They could have somebody there and be like, well, here's the offer for you. If you don't like it, we can turn to whoever it may be. I think when you start getting similarities with what the Broncos have is when you get to Chop Robinson.
Yeah,
there are similarities there. He's kind of a mix of both Benito and Browning. Freak athlete, explosive off the snap like Benito is. And the way he moves and everything, that's more Browning. So there is definitely a lot of similarities there to him. My favorite edge that I would love for the Broncos, who just would help the room the most, is Marshawn Nealand, just because the Broncos, none of the guys that they have are reliable run defenders in the edge room. Marshawn Nealand is the best run defending edge in this room, and he's a quality pass rusher as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you. And speaking of the edge position, we're going to transition our way and keep this conversation moving. One of the positions, obviously, we're bouncing around the roster. Typically, we stay on the offensive side of the football.
From the chat real quick. There's a couple of them here that I want to get, but first I just want to say, Doug, you're going to give me an aneurysm talking about trading up for Bo Nix. Like, I'm not even sold on him at 12. You're going to give me an aneurysm, man. Like, come on.
All right, so let's
Powers has one here.
Go ahead.
Jared Wiley or Tip Ryman. And the big question here is there's a reason why I want to grab them. There's a couple other questions in here about tight ends as well.
Yep.
What type of tight end do you want? What type of tight end do the Broncos need? Well, in my opinion, they need somebody who can dictate matchups, and they need a blocker. I am so down on this tight end room, and that comes after being super high on Greg Dulcich entering year 2. Yep. Got hurt again, similar issues, not able to recover from it. Like, that'll do it for you. Jared Wiley, he's got a kind of guy that can create different create matchups for you or create mismatches for you. Tip Ryman, I think there's more as a receiver than you saw at Illinois. But he's still kind of limited. He's still kind of limited there. He's not going to be this, explosive threat, dynamic threat at the tight end position who can create mismatches. You can line him up in line. He can, work those short and intermediate routes from the tight end spot, from the inline tight end spot, and he can be a reliable blocker. When we do would you rathers, we always include rounds, just simply because it's like that helps dictate of when you're talking about taking these players, because that is such a big thing when we talk about the value of players. Is where would we take them? See, Tip Ryman for me is a better value than Jared Wiley in round 5. Or Tip Ryman in round 4 is a better value than Jared Wiley in round 5. But if you get to Jared Wiley in like round 6 or 7 for Tip Ryman in round 4, then that would switch it. So I'm just to keep in mind when we go through this. And then Todd Ossendorf, I just wanted to grab these other 2 tight end questions real quick. Would you rather go a tight end with our second pick in the draft or wide receiver? Fully depends on how the board falls with how this receiver draft looks. I would probably actually go receiver, because tight end, I think I have like 4 tight ends total in my first like top 150 players. I hate this class. It is awful. You have 2 guys at the top. You have 2 all right guys that can develop. And then it's just, oh my God, like just throw a dart and maybe you'll hit. And then David Youngkin, is there a tight end in the third that is good or not? I think the 2 tight ends the one tight end I have a third round grade on, I believe is Theo Johnson out of Penn State. Who is strictly a, you got to develop him. And there are a lot of concerns about getting him developed. And then I think I had Cade Stover just there as that on that cusp of 3rd round in the early 4th round. He's a guy that he can be an all right blocker, reliable receiver in short and intermediate routes. But I don't see a lot of room there for growth and development with him.
Yeah, the big thing with Theo Johnson is he's a big body red zone target. Like, he's Mike Gesicki 2.0 essentially. Like, I think that they're very similar players in terms of Gesicki's more of a big slot option. I think Theo Johnson kind of projects to be that kind of a player. He's a good athlete, good hands and whatnot. Going back to Wiley and Ryman though, to me, Tip Ryman is arguably the best blocking tight end in this class. If you want to talk about just lining up as a Y tight end on the end of the line of scrimmage and matching up with the defensive end, he has the size to do it. He weighed in at 272 pounds or something like that at the combine. He's strong at the point of attack, shows good hand placement, can move players. Like, he can actually get somebody to displace them off of their spot. And he also offers, like Eric said, I think more receiving upside than what was shown at Illinois. Wiley, I think, is more along the lines of a similar player like Greg Dulcich. We already have that guy. So to me, I think that I would rather draft Ryman to offer that counterbalance to get a guy on the offensive line. And if you do want to run 12 personnel, you have Greg Dulcich. Wiley and Dulcich kind of cancel each other out within what this offense is, because they are so similar in terms of stretching the field vertically and horizontally with speed and athleticism. They both have great catch radiuses, but Wiley's not a guy you're going to line up in line and succeed at the point of attack as a blocker. That's my take on those guys. In terms of Cade Stover, I haven't watched enough of him, but solid all-around player. I think AJ Barner is probably a better option if you're looking for another guy with high upside and a quality blocker at the point of attack coming out of Michigan. So you know that he has those blocking chops. I would probably take AJ Barner early 4th round, I think would be about where his value would be. But you got to see more with him as a receiver. He just never got the opportunities to do so. I hopefully that answers everybody's questions on the tight end position, at least in the middle of the round. Let's get back to the edge position, though, because I had a really good one here for you in terms of players at round 4, round 5, somewhere on the middle of day 3, if the Broncos miss out on one of the top players at the edge position. If they trade down and get a guy like Latu, obviously this kind of cancels this conversation out, but we're not projecting trades. Projecting trades sucks. It's really hard to do. Zach Powers has another good one here. I'm going to grab that in a second, but let's talk about Jonah Ellis out of Utah coming, let's say round 4 versus Eyabi Okie-Anoma, a guy coming from Charlotte, transferred a couple different times, but I really like his fit. Dalla Winter jumping in here on Facebook with some stars, so thank you, Dalla, for that. Eyabi Okie-Anoma, round 6 versus Jonah Ellis, round 4. Who would you rather take?
EOA. I'm terrible with names. Not going to take a shot at saying it. I'll work on it for the draft, but for now, I haven't taken my day off yet to start, working on name pronunciations. And yeah, I'd take a full day for doing that. Try to get him correct for the draft.
He does.
But yeah, EOA, he's the guy that I would sit there and I would take. Why?
Yes.
Well, it just comes down to value. That's what this whole exercise is about. I have one player who is my number 8th player in round 4, which is Jonah Ellis. And then I have the guy who is my number 43rd player in round 5 that you're asking me in round 6. Who's the guy that fell?
The EOA, for sure. I love this dude, man. I absolutely fell in love with watching his tape. And the big thing, and I don't remember if we talked about it. I know we talked about it on a phone call a few weeks ago, because there's apparently some character concerns. And Eric, I'm going to let you elaborate on this. It's not a problem to me. Just back to the tape here. We're talking 6'4", 265 pounds, 34.5-inch arms, explosive athlete, shows enough bend to really work, but he has every tool that you would want for a quality NFL edge rush position, but he has no technical refinement. This is a moldable ball of clay. He is just so incredible to watch. He's fun. The games that he played at Charlotte that I was able to watch, he dominated the competition. He was a great run defender at that level. He was a great pass rusher at that level. And that's what you want to see from smaller school prospects. Do they dominate that level of competition? And that's exactly what he did. He was at Michigan there. I believe he broke out his college career at Michigan, got a sack on his very first snap, by the way, as a Michigan Wolverine, transferred to Houston, and then transferred again to go to Charlotte. Eric, I'm going to let you pass off the reasons why on that. But this dude, in terms of a developmental player that would actually have Batman upside, like legitimate premier pass rush upside, if you can get him in the 5th or 6th round, Eyabi Okie-Anoma, dude, that's my guy.
Okay. Chat. I've said this before, I'll say it again. When you make comparisons to players, you're not comparing the prospect to what the player is now. You're making the comparison to them as prospects. Mm-hmm. And it's often a very set, finite thing that you are comparing. So when you see Bo Nix is Patrick Mahomes, which, Doug, I don't agree with that. You may see it. I don't see that at all. It's not a thing of Bo Nix is Patrick Mahomes right now. That's not, I hate when people do comparisons like that. That's not the way comparisons are meant to be done. It's all about how they are as prospect or this one specific element to them. Like last week when I was talking about Michael Penix and I said that he has a natural arm like Matthew Stafford, I was specifically comparing the arm. Comparisons are useful. There is a point for them, and it's a thing of just pointing out of like, all right, this is that type of player due to this trait. This is who to think of when you look at this straightforward. Comparisons are useful, but they just get overblown now because a lot of comparisons are made for clickbait reasons. It's a big reason why I don't, go public with a lot of my comparisons. But there is a use for them when it comes to evaluating players. NFL teams, they do it to an extent. Again, it's more so about certain aspects of it, and all that. So yeah, that's just how it is with comparisons. Now, as for EOA, you kind of highlighted about him, the reasons for moving around. There were some issues with him going to class at Alabama, and then issues at I can't remember where it was.
Houston.
Where
he went to Houston.
Thank you. There's same kind of issues there. He went to Michigan, kind of got things corrected a little bit, moved for some personal issues. So there are some, character red flags for him, but that's going to be factored in. A lot of things are sitting there saying that he will grow, or that he's matured and grow a little bit. But, same thing as we're talking about with Spencer Rattler. There are people who don't think that, and there are people who are constantly going. There are people who, will believe both ways. So, and you just never know. Like when they get to the NFL, there's a lot of things that can change for it. Also, you guys, like, it's been like 4 weeks of talking about Bo Nix. Doug, I know you like him and everything, but like, let's try to keep, not argue in chat, and let's try to keep it, there's over 1,000 players in this draft, not just Bo Nix.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. We'll talk about Bo Nix a lot, I'm sure, especially if the Broncos draft him. But just we'll get there. We can take a step back from the Bo Nix discourse, guys.
Not to come at anybody, but man, I developed this show to get us some new names to talk about and just have some fun, man. It's always fun. Nix, Jeremy Sean, yes, Nix the Knicks talk. Let's go. I'm here for this life. Eric, are you there? Did you die, or did I die?
Up. My camera freezes up.
Well, you just didn't say anything, so I'm sorry, dude. I want to grab this one though, and we're bouncing around, guys, and I'm trying to incorporate some stuff in the chat. Zach Powers is doing the Lord's work here, giving us some players that would you rather. Let's go back to the tight end position. I mentioned the first guy here, AJ Barner, who I like a lot. There's another player in this one, Ben Sinnott, the tight end out of Kansas. Is he really a tight end though, Eric? Is he more like H-back, fullback, like multi-usage player? Because that's the vibes that I got with him. I like both of these guys. So let's go AJ Barner round 4, Ben Sinnott round 5. Because that's what
you have AJ Barner. You have AJ Barner higher than Ben Sinnott?
I do have AJ Barner higher than Ben Sinnott.
I don't.
I do. Really? Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay.
I will actually search this real quick. So I have AJ Barner as my number 5th overall player in the 5th round.
Okay.
And I just saw his name. Ben Sinnott is my number 15th overall player in the 4th round.
Okay.
When looking specifically at tight ends, I have 2 tight ends between them as well. Okay. So it's not really close. And if I want to get to, grade, and I don't think I'm God. Like,
easy,
Doug,
easy. Easy here. Let's just nix that conversation and move our conversation forward.
No. It's Doug. I get paid to do this full time, to evaluate these players, to do all this. I have this show with Lance where I'm giving my opinion. Like, just as it's your opinion, as I'm not God, I don't think I'm God. I try not to act like God, but I am confident in my opinions because of my experience of doing this. This is my 12th draft evaluating players. 12 years. Like, and it's a thing of, you can think that if Sean takes Knicks, that means he loves him and will be successful. Great. That's your opinion. You can have that. I don't necessarily share it. It's whatever. But we've talked about Bo Nix for weeks on end, and all I'm asking is just a break. Like, just a night without Knicks, because we're probably going to talk about him a lot leading up to the Broncos pick at 12. We're going to be talking about him probably a lot throughout the draft, especially if the Broncos do trade down from 12. It's going to be a long conversation. We've talked about him a lot, and all we're doing right now is we're just going in circles.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think he has a strong arm. I don't think he's that great of a prospect. I don't think he's worth 12 overall. You don't. We just go in circles. Like, we're just trying to go and move on to talk about other people. But the I'm not God comment, man, that's just a little out of pocket. I know a lot of people think that I like to act that way. I try not to. And I don't ever think that I am God. I'm just confident in my opinions, and I will back up my opinions.
Yeah,
Anyways, going back to the tight end conversation. AJ Barner, I think he's just extremely limited as a receiver. And I don't think he's as good of a blocker as a lot of other people do. So that's a big reason why I think that he is his move is that. And Sorry, last thing. Doug, go check out my mock draft on Mile High Huddle. I think you'll be surprised with the first pick I made.
Yeah, I haven't got a chance to check it out. I need to go do that myself. Anyways, man, that was interesting. Okay, let's just continue on our conversation. There was Zach coming in with another couple of good ones. We typically try to do this in terms of like same positions, and he's got a couple of good ones here that I want to get to here in just a minute. But let's go back to the offensive side of the football for the Broncos, the stuff that I have prepared for us here. Obviously, we know it's been one of the more polarizing players for the Denver Broncos over the last 7 seasons. It's been 7 seasons, by the way, since the Broncos have drafted an offensive tackle. That guy was Garrett Bowles, and it's been a very polarizing thing. You all know how I feel about him, at least if you've been paying attention to our show for a couple of years. But he's in the last year of his deal. He's 32 years old, and again, 7 seasons in the NFL. Denver needs to address the tackle position moving forward, whether it's a replacement for Bowles, whether it's a replacement for Mike McGlinchey. They need to figure out something to at least, if nothing else, build the depth of this team. Mm-hmm. Jordan Morgan out of Arizona, dude, dancing bear. I really like this tape, needs more power, but he's a fine player, potentially a first-round pick versus Matt Goncalves in round 4. So would you take
guard.
So, 2 cards. You think Goncalves is going to be okay? All right. So, How about Morgan round 2, Goncalves round 4?
I'll take Goncalves round 4. So Jordan Morgan, to me, I think he'd be a great guard. I don't think he makes it a tackle. There's enough there where I think that you could sit there and throw him at tackle, see what he does, and then move on from him. Or not move on, sorry. Move him if he doesn't work out at tackle. Goncalves, I think you just want to play him at guard right away.
Okay.
And let him develop. He needs a little bit of development in there, a little bit of of time just, cleaning up the body. A lot of bad weight. So when I talk about bad weight, I could stand up and show you. Bad weight is when they very obviously have a stomach where, the jiggly fat, like I have.
It's a fair point.
And it's not a fit weight. Goncalves has that. When you watch him, it's a little bit obvious. So you got to sit there and clean that up a little bit, and work with him through that, and again develop him a little bit. Which is why I think that I would rather take that round 4 and see if you can develop him, trusting Zach Strief to develop him, work him on getting inside. But the other part of this is the value of the pick. A round 2 pick is somebody that you kind of want starting right away.
Yeah,
I don't think an offensive lineman on this team is starting, right away outside of maybe a center at center. And I don't think Jordan Morgan can play center. But with Matt Goncalves, you can sit there and you can hold on to him. You can develop him for the next year or two, where you might be losing Quinn Miners if they don't get an extension done because he's on the final year of his deal. Mm-hmm. And you can move on from Ben Powers after this year as well.
Yeah.
Just decide to absorb that. So I prefer Matt Goncalves because it just affords you that little bit extra time and not as much pressure to get the player out there as a round 2 pick would.
Right. The one thing that I'm going to push back just a little bit on is his Matt Goncalves. I loved his tape, dude, especially on the right side. So he played on the right side primarily at Pittsburgh for the first couple of years in college, and then he moved over to the left side and had a toe injury, had surgery, so he wasn't able to play the rest of this last year. So we didn't get to see him on the left side. So he has right and left side versatility, at least we think he does. But, dude, this guy has some of the best grip strength in this class in terms of when I latch on, I can hold on to you and I'm just going to move around with you. He was great. The problem is his feet are so slow and he doesn't have a great kick slide. Like, he doesn't win horizontally or vertically. He has to win with a jump set and then move with you. Like, he has to latch on to actually win. So that makes a lot of sense. I never thought of it like that. That makes a lot of sense why you would move him into guard. Like the more I think about it, that is actually probably his best fit at the NFL level. And you can allow him to continue to grow, work on his footwork a little bit better, lose some of that bad weight, and just become what I think is going to be a high-quality offensive lineman at the NFL level, dude. I really, really liked his tape. The only issue with moving him inside is that you really have to improve his bend and pad level.
Yeah, because he gets too high, he doesn't play with leverage, and that is a bigger concern working inside than outside.
Yeah, absolutely. And he doesn't have the greatest length. I think he's 33.5-inch arms. I might be wrong on that. And I'm doing this off the top of my head, guys, as I always do for the most part, but not the most length. So moving him inside might help him there in terms of moving away from tackle to getting him to play at a more successful position, given his skill set and body type. Thank you for pointing that out to me, because I didn't think about that. I was looking at him primarily as an offensive tackle. Got a couple of questions in here that Zach Powers just continues to bring him in. Zach, I need you to give me round grades, buddy. Where would you rather? So he's got Christian Jones or Dominic Pooney here. Pooney's
Dominic Pooney. Oh man,
yeah.
He's one of my draft crushes. I would take him at 12 overall before I took Christian Jones. And that's also an indictment of Christian Jones, by the way. I'm not a fan.
He's all right. I mean, he can play. He could be a good swing tackle at the NFL level. Pooney's more interior guy, though. He's a guard, but he's going to be really, really good.
Oh no, I'm saying both of them are guards.
You think Christian Jones is a guard with that length?
I think Christian Jones is a guard because of his issues that lead to him playing at tackle.
Okay, okay, that's fair. I think I'd try him at tackle first and see, and then if we have to move him back inside, that's okay. This is a good one. And we're going to talk about first-round players here. These are two of the best interior offensive line prospects in the draft. Zach Powers, again, jumping in here because I'm going to go straight first round. Jackson Powers Johnson or Graham Barton? What's your evaluation, dude? This is a fun one.
Either.
Either? No, you got to pick one or the other.
I think either way, you're getting a guy who can start at center for the next 10, 15 years at a high level.
Yep. Well, and I think I think Barton has a little bit more upside at guard too, and he can play tackle as well. We haven't seen Jackson Powers Johnson slide out that far. I think he can play guard. He showed it at the senior level. Barton at least played tackle at Duke, and he's played guard on both sides of the football, and he projects as a high-level center.
And he played center.
Man,
Graham Barton started as a center at Duke.
I know. Like I said, he can play all five of those positions, man.
He's all five.
JPJ, dude, he's built like
Dominic Pooney. Going back to him, he is another one that a lot of people believe can play all five spots. He took snaps at the Senior Bowl at center and did extremely well.
Yep. Yeah. Man, this is fun. JPJ, though, dude, this dude plays with so much power. I think he's probably, if you're looking for the prototypical fit at the center position for the Sean Payton offense, it's Jackson Powers Johnson. Yeah. It's JPJ, dude. He moves so well. He's so powerful. He's got good length for the center position. He's heady. He's got a great football IQ. Like, oh, God, I love that player. He's one of my draft crushes, by the way. I love Jackson Powers Johnson. Is there another one here that I wanted to grab? I don't think so. We can get back to the stuff that I have. While I pull up my document here and kind of erase some stuff, I'm going to give you this one from Zach Powers, and I'm going to give you round grades on this one because I think that I don't want to compare them in the same level here because I think Rook Orororo is going to be a second-round pick. I have a fifth-round grade on Mason Smith, so I'm going to give them to you like that. Rook Orororo in the second round or Mason Smith in the fifth.
So real quick, I want to grab this. JPJ does have injury concerns. It's not just rumors. It was something that people wanted to look at the combine.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Suffered two concussions, I think, during the season at Oregon. I might be mistaken. It might only be one, but he also battled through a groin injury as well during this last season at Oregon. And yeah, those concussions especially are concerning when it comes to players. But yeah, he does have injury concerns. I believe Barton does as well. I believe during his first season, I think he also had two concussions during his first season playing center. Gotcha. Not positive on that. I'd have to double check and research on that, but I believe I remember reading something about it.
Right. I didn't know that. So that's interesting, to tell you the truth. I didn't know that Powers had the concussion concerns. Not that it really changes my opinion of the player. Obviously it's a concern, but it's not anything that has to do with, I guess it is something to do with on the football field, but in terms of his skill set and what he brings to the team, man, JPJ.
Yeah.
So back to Ruka Rororo and then Mason Smith.
So I think both these guys are probably going in the top 100.
Really? Okay.
Ruka Rororo, I think, is in the second round. Mason Smith is tough because, man, he's got an elite length, outstanding athlete, just has never put the pieces together, has some injuries. But I can see a defensive line coach, a defensive coordinator being like, give me that guy We'll
Yep.
develop him. He has all the tools. He has all the traits. We just got to bring it out of him, and letting the coach's ego kind of take over and become a loud voice in the room, to where he goes somewhere in the third round. But so adjusting it for a second, and for Ruko Rororo, and a third for Mason Smith, I think I go Ruko Rororo. I think there's less work to be done.
Yeah.
I think that he doesn't need as much work as a run defender as you do with Mason Smith.
That's difficult because Rororo is still so raw too. Like, he's got all of the upside, and so is Mason Smith. I mean, we're talking. This is a good comparison here too. I mean, you're talking players with good size, good length, great athleticism. Mason Smith is a terror on the field, man. He's just so inconsistent. And those injuries, I think he had a knee injury in 2021. And I know he had shoulder injuries in 2022 that really kind of hampered his development. I just wrote his scouting report the other day, by the way. That should be up on milehighhuddle.com here in, I'm guessing, the next 24 hours. So check that out. But when I watched him, dude, like, the consistency thing, he relies on those tools so much, and it makes it so difficult, because if he was technically refined, he's got top 50 tape. It's just, there's the top 50 flashes, and then there's the bottom 150 consistency. And that's what makes him so difficult to navigate in terms of his evaluation.
Sorry, real quick,
fact
checking myself. Graham Barton's injuries are actually from this last season, where he suffered 2 concussions and another injury. And Jackson Powers Johnson dealt with multiple concussions throughout his career at college.
Yeah. We got Jeremy Sean jumping in here talking about Christian Boyd. And I have one here with Christian Boyd, who is on this next piece that I have coming at milehighhuddle.com. I love this player, man. Small school kid out of northern Iowa, dominated competition, nose tackle. We're talking nose tackle with pass rush upside. There's also another guy that stole the show at the combine, in Trent Sweat out of Texas. Most people were saying at the time he's borderline the top 32 player, more than likely a top 50 player. So, Eric, I got to ask you, dude, are we talking Trent Sweat round 3? Because I know you got some things here. Trent Sweat round 3 versus Christian Boyd round 5.
So, obviously, a lot of people should be aware of the recent arrest and everything with Trent Sweat. DWI caused an accident. So Trent Sweat, he's a big, massive dude, but there are a lot of character concerns with him coming out. Maturity, class clown, being disruptive in team meetings, position meetings, stuff like that, that I think is going to see him fall. A lot of people are talking about second round, and even before the arrest, I think that he was probably looking at a third round pick, and now, not saying he will, I could see him fall out of the third round somewhere to day 3, with the arrest and everything, as well as all these other issues with him. Another issue with him is there's some concern about his weight, where he was playing close to 400 pounds last year.
Conditioning,
his weight in check, conditioning. I mean, there's on tape, you can see it. He takes plays off pretty regularly. And then being a nose tackle, he's just a pure nose tackle. Those guys play maybe 50% of defensive snaps as it is, which drops their value. It reminds me a little bit of Travis Jones out of UConn a couple years ago. A lot of people are like, oh, this is a first round guy, great athlete, great size, great athlete for his size, with tremendous size. Fell to the third round and everybody was shocked, but he had issues keeping his weight in check. There were some character concerns about how he took to coaching. There some conditioning issues, all these things that led to him, and the Ravens were comfortable taking him in the third round. But from what I've gathered, I'm not sure another team would have taken him that early yet. All it takes is one team, but so I could see Sweat falling down. Christian Boyd, man, when I was watching over the Shrine Game tape, man, he just continued to pop and stand out. Watching his tape, you can see him, a lot to work with, and I think that for a 5th, 6th round pick for Christian Boyd, I think that's pretty good value for him with what you're going to get, and he can develop, and he can eat space. He can 2-gap. He has some 1-gap. He can 1-gap a little bit, but the Broncos are predominantly 1.5 gapping, which is what he's built for, the most. And so I really like Boyd, and I would take Boyd over Sweat.
I think that the big thing here is what you kind of hit it on the nose here. Just the limitations in terms of what T'Vondre Sweat is. Like, he is a 0-1 technique nose tackle. Christian Boyd can move outside and he can play some 3 technique if you need him to. I think that he's got enough explosiveness, and maybe this is him playing at Northern Iowa. The games that I watched was South Dakota State twice, and then I watched the North Dakota State game and a couple of highlight reels just to see what it was. He's got enough burst in his first step, and he packs a big-time punch. There's some length issues with him, but dude, playing the nose tackle position and offering that kind of pass rush upside is what he brings to you. He's in shape. I do think there's some times where he takes some plays off, not nearly as often as Sweat, but this kid is just, he's a solid player. I think that I would rather have him in the 5th or 6th round like you, dude. Like T'Vondre Sweat as a firm pass rush only, essentially, nose tackle, because he's not great against the run. He doesn't move very well enough laterally where he's going to be able to hang at the NFL level. At least Boyd can move laterally too. Really? Okay.
I think Sweat is very much a 2-gap run stopping defensive tackle, as long as he doesn't have to move laterally.
That's what
he can eat up space, but man, he can generate a little bit of push up the pocket, but he's not a pass rusher by any means. I think Boyd brings a little bit more in that department.
Yep.
But the big thing with T'Vondre Sweat as a player is he's naturally tall and he plays tall. And that hurts him as both a pass rusher and a run defender. Gives up natural leverage to to his opponent, to whoever's blocking him, and just creates some issues for him as well. And there's just a lot with T'Vondre Sweat. Like, it's great to fall in love with the size and the athleticism for the size, but there's a lot. There's a reason why he didn't weigh in at the Senior Bowl, which is super unheard of. And it's probably because his weight was probably closer to 380 than the 365 or whatever it was at the combine.
Yeah, there was rumors saying that he was going to show up at the Senior Bowl at 380, 385, maybe pushing 390. He cut a lot of weight to get down even to the 362 or whatever the hell it was that he weighed in at the Senior Bowl. So that's a big concern. I love Christian Boyd, dude. I fell in love with watching his tape. He damn near got a 3rd round grade for me, but I'm going through and trying to double check my work and everything and making sure that I'm not missing something or overvalue. He ended up with a mid 4th round grade for me. That's how much I love this player. He damn near got a 3rd. If he could show a little bit more consistency against the run, he would have got a 3rd round grade for me. To get him in the 5th round, that's immense value. Let's go to the wide receiver. Actually, never mind. We're staying defense. We're going to stay defense to close the show out because I got a couple here. One of them's for fun, but the other one's for real. This one here, obviously, Mel Kiper Jr.'s mock draft hit the other day, and he had the Broncos sticking at number 12 overall and taking Quinton Mitchell, the cornerback out of Toledo. Love this player. He's a lot of fun, very sticky in coverage, played a lot of off zone, and there's questions about him playing in press man. We're going to go with him, Quinton Mitchell, round 1, versus a guy I like a lot for the Broncos because of the scheme versatility, Chris Abrams-Drain out of Missouri. We'll put him round 3. So Quinton Mitchell, round 1, Chris Abrams-Drain, round 3. Go.
Quinton Mitchell. He's my top corner in this class. You can put him in any scheme and have him be successful.
Yeah.
Chris Abrams-Drain, I think he's a lot more limited in what scheme you place him in. And I don't think he's a boundary corner in the NFL. He just doesn't have the size or the bulk for it. Okay, and the lack of bulk for him, I believe, it is going to be a concern when it comes to the run defense. You have to have quality run defense from your slot corners in the modern NFL, and I just don't think that he's good enough there. I think if I remember right, I just threw my paper off to the side. If I remember right, he's in the 4th round, so that alone is like Quinton Mitchell, top corner. He's like rated as number 12 overall, ironically. And yeah, just I'm a big Quinton Mitchell fan. Could do anything, any coverage, inside or out. Just so many options that you can do with him, and he's reliable on the outside.
Right. I guess I'm going to go to my kind of the way that I think that the Broncos should approach this draft class. I mean, I wouldn't hate Quinton Mitchell at 12 overall if they do stay there. I love Quinton Mitchell. He's one of 3 players that I would be I had another one here, but he's one of 4 players that I would be comfortable with the Broncos sticking at number 12 overall and taking behind Brock Bowers, Byron Murphy, and I can't remember the 4th one, but Quinton Mitchell or Dallas Turner was the next one. And then Quinton Mitchell. Those are the 4 players that I would be comfortable with the Broncos staying and selecting at number 12 overall. I just like Chris Abrams-Drain because I think that his natural transition, if you can build up the strength profile, he's got a great frame. He's long, he's tall, he's athletic. He fits, I think, a little bit better in terms of what Vance Joseph wants to do in terms of press man, cover 3, stuff like that, than Mitchell does, because he played so much more off man, cover 4 and cover 6 and stuff like that at Toledo. So that's kind of why I would lean Abrams Drain there, but mostly because I want the Broncos to move back, and that's a target that I have for the Broncos in the 3rd or 4th round. So that's my opinion on those guys. You mentioned Abrams Drain in the slot, though. This next one, mostly just for fun, because I want to say this guy's name on the show more than just a shout out to him at the NFL Combine. Mike Sainristil, round 2 out of Michigan, is slot cornerbacks. We're talking slot cornerbacks here. Versus Miles Harden out of South Dakota, round 5, man. Similar players. Harden's a little bit bigger, but you want to talk about aggressive, physical, just get after it, nasty players, dude. Sainristil round 2, Harden round 5.
Sainristil.
Okay.
I actually I have a question on it. I really like his game. I mean, he's physical from the slot, solid run defender, can get caught a little bit and can struggle to work his way through, but he's reliable enough for the NFL. Slot only corner, you don't want to put him on the boundary.
Right.
Miles Harden does give you a little bit more versatility in where you line him up.
Yep.
But I think he's strictly an off zone corner more so than anything. But my question is who's the first slot corner taken?
Are you talking true slot corner?
True slot corner.
Oh man.
There's a debate for me between 2.
I don't know, man. I think it might be Sainristil if you're talking true slot corners. Because if you're thinking
Sanderson's one of the 2 that I can't decide between him or Andrew Phillips.
Yeah, I could see that too. He was another one I wanted to throw into this conversation as well as Andrew Phillips.
Yeah, I mean Andrew Phillips is
like, gritty, dude. He's gritty. God, he's so.
There's
tough.
Been what's his name? You know, the Washington DB that's on the Chiefs.
Trent McCarthy.
Yeah, there's been a lot of comparisons thrown out between Andrew
I could see it
with the way they play.
I think the other what's the other Washington kid that you like so much? Elijah something. Elijah, you know, a couple of years ago, the
Elijah Melvin.
Yes, say the same kind of thing there with Andrew Phillips. Very gritty, nasty, physical football player. I love that kid.
Zach, are you saying that Terrion Arnold is the first slot corner drafted? Is that what you're getting at? Because he's not a slot corner. He'll be on the boundary.
No, he'll be on the boundary. So you're gonna hate me for this, and the name that went.
I think DeJean will end up at safety before long.
I think there as well. The one that I like, the first name that I was going, but I knew it wasn't like pure slot cornerback only, that I was going to say is obviously going to go ahead of Mike Sainristil, Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. I think that he's going to be a better slot cornerback at the NFL level than he's going to be.
You can't put him in the slot with his complete, dude is completely allergic to physicality.
I know that, but his twitch and athleticism just projects so well to be a slot player.
Javon Bullard is a safety. He can drop into the slot.
Yeah,
he's going to be used a lot in too high situations.
Yeah, he'll be a big nickel if you need him to. I guess last one here, because we're about to our hour. I know we started a little bit late, guys, but I got one more here because Erick, the first player I'm going to give you is one that I know that you like a lot. In fact, I know that there's some people saying that this is running back 1 in this NFL draft class. We're going to talk about Jaylen Wright out of Tennessee. I know this for a fact. This is your running back number 1, which is why I brought this into this. Jaylen Wright out of Tennessee, explosive. Holy hell, this guy can run. Versus, I don't think he's obviously quite as explosive, but just a bowling ball running back. Ray Davis out of Kentucky, round 5, dude. I love this player. What do you think?
What do you want? It's another one of those situations. What do you want from your running back? Do you want to find somebody who can really replace Javonte Williams or Samaje Perine? Because if so, that's Ray Davis.
Absolutely.
You want somebody who can add another element to the offense and upgrade over McLaughlin? That's Jaylen Wright.
Mm-hmm.
Jaylen Wright, man, in Sean Payton's offense with the way he uses running backs, he can line up out in the slot. He can line up out wide. You can move them all over.
Just going to say that's your Alvin Kamara, dude.
Yeah, it's... Man, like He is such a good player, offers up so much to it. I think he can work as a kick returner, especially with the new rules in place and the new way they're going about it. Man, he's so fun to watch. Absolutely love him. This is a weak running back class. And he's the only running back I have in the first 2 rounds, and he barely made the second round. So that's something as well. He's not in the top 50. Big fan of Jaylen Wright.
Yeah, I know you are, and that's why I brought him up specifically on this one. And I know that that's probably the direction you're going to go with the value. I have him in the 3rd round, so the Broncos pick at 76 overall. So there's your pick there. Ray Davis, dude, just to talk about him, because I love this player. He's small and compact and just super physical. Why does he remind me of CJ Anderson? Like, quite honestly, they're not like body type similar, but play style wise. Ray Davis is a bowling ball, man. He is so compact. He's built well low to the ground. He's got great contact balance and good burst coming out the backside, more speed than CJ did. But when you watch him go through the line of scrimmage, man, that is a dude to watch. I wanted to compare and do like a Jaylen Wright versus Isaac Guerendo, but we all know how much I love Isaac Guerendo. I know how much you love Isaac Guerendo, and probably more similar play styles specifically, but Ray Davis, man, I got to give my guy some love. I love his tape. He's probably going to end up with a 4th round grade for me. I have him in the 5th round because that's where kind of the consensus is for the most part, around 160-ish area. But man, Ray Davis, Jaylen Wright, both those guys would be great options to add to this room for the Broncos. And you could, if you take Ray Davis that late, you could move on from Samaje Perine and save that a little bit of extra cap money, and then move on from Javonte Williams after the fact and just kind of rebuild that running back room with Ray Davis as the guy moving forward. I think he's not a 3-down player though. Eric, I want your thoughts on him as a 3-down player, because that's not him.
Well, I have one thought here, and then we'll have to get out of here because we're running late. The reason why Ray Davis reminds you of CJ Anderson is because they are essentially a clone. Yeah. Ray Davis plays about 220 pounds. CJ Anderson played about 220 pounds. Both are 5'8", both have 30-inch arms, and there's like an eighth of an inch between in their difference in their hand size. The way they run, the way they catch, everything they do is so similar. That is why Ray Davis reminds you of CJ Anderson. It's essentially the same player. But yeah, I like Ray Davis a lot too. And if you're really wanting to move on from Samaje Perine, go ahead and give me him. But guys, we started late, and we are now hit that point where we got to get out of here before we get yelled at by our boss. We'll be back next week. I think next week we're going to do a full 1st round mock draft, just to highlight what the Broncos are going to do. Talk about the first 11 picks, get the Broncos on the clock, and then go from there and see what we're going to be doing. So yeah, it'll be fun. And then the Thursday after that, we're still working on figuring out when we're going to do our Mile High Huddle roundtable mock draft and what we're doing for the live draft show. I know I'll be there for pretty much every hour of it, about 20 hours that we're live for those. We hope you guys join us and join in the conversation. That'll be the time to get all of your one Oregon quarterback conversations in. Just do it when I'm not here. Do it when Nick's here. Nick absolutely loves talking about him.
Dylan Gabriel? Are we talking Dylan Gabriel now? Is that what we're doing, moving to 2024 or 2025? Sorry.
So make sure you guys hit up Nick on Twitter as well. It just cheers him up so much when that Oregon quarterback gets mentioned to him. Seriously though, I mean, I'm not sure there might be a guy who's more tired of that discourse than I am. And honestly, it's not that I hate Bo Nix. I just, again, value's just not there for me. 12 overall. But anyways,
I know your answer to this.
Here.
I know quickly. I know your answer to this. Would you rather have the Bo Nix discourse or the Drew Lock discourse?
Drew Lock. I'd much rather have the Drew Lock discourse.
I swear to God, I thought you were about to say no.
Like, I would much rather have the Drew Lock discourse.
All right. With that, guys, we're going to have to get out of here. Thank you all for joining us on a great Friday evening for Dove Valley Deep Divers. For Erick Trickel, I am Lance Sanderson. Follow us on Twitter at Erick Trickel, at LanceS_MHH. Also, follow everything that's going on at Mile High Huddle. You can go to milehighhuddle.com, check out all of our scouting reports, film breakdowns, analysis, breaking news, anything regarding your Denver Broncos. You can find all of that there at Mile High Huddle on on Twitter and at milehighhuddle.com. Go over Facebook, facebook.com/milehighhuddle. Get into the conversation over there as well. You all stay safe and take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. Hit us up. We're always down to have some fun and talk Broncos. We'll see you guys same time, same place next week.